Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I'm here with Joe. How are you doing, Joe?
I'm all right, Perch. How are you?
I feel very deja vu-y at the moment. Feels like we've done this
Right?
already.
Yeah, it's probably the Christopher Columbus curse. We're recording right around Columbus Day.
There you go.
Um,
It's a deep cut there.
so get your pinky rings out, Italians. It's almost Columbus Day, or already is, or was.
We're on a great start. All right. Well, this is uh, this is a take two. We got a few minutes into this thing, and then discovered the screen recording wasn't working. Anyway, so we're giving this another shot. But Joe, where we were going with this was I got a lot of people that sent me this link to this article, and they really wanted me to comment on it. And then a few of those people said, to make it really good, you got to get Joe because his reactions to this are going to be just amazing.
Great. I wish I had any idea what was happening, but please let's dive in and find out what this is.
Well, to line it up a little bit, you and I have talked about a lot of really classic comic runs and
Yeah.
comics, from the years. And what are some of your favorites, by the way, before we get the kind of the favorite classic comics? And classic, I'm saying, let's say older than 20 years.
Sure. Those like 6 years of Batman before Crisis, like when it
Mhm.
was like Jerry Conway, Doug Mensch, Gene Colan, Don Newton, like that run of about like 6 solid years. Absolutely fantastic. I I love both like Steve Englehart and Mark Grunwald's runs on Cap, particularly probably from when Grunwald took over through like the Bloodstone Hunt is all excellent. There's really no point in talking about Claremont's X-Men because it's just
Sure.
like, oh, you like wow, do you like I don't know, something people like, but
Yeah,
but yeah, lots of stuff like that.
lots of great.
Sal Buscema on the Hulk
Ooh,
is
yeah.
what a fantastic artist for that book. There's some great stories in there, like that one where he fights Absorbing Man on like Easter Island, and it's like it's really claustrophobic. You get that like Frank Miller
Yeah.
cover on
That's
that. That's great stuff.
I don't feel that way about it. That was a great run. You're absolutely
Yeah,
right. We should dig into that at some point.
yes, no, absolutely. But there's so many great things. Obviously, like New Teen Titans, especially through like Judas Contract, Marv Wolfman's Action Comics run,
Mhm.
pre-Crisis, where you get like Superman splits in two, and you get the new Brainiac, all that stuff. That's really great. Um, I would say with the Silver Age, Fantastic Four, and Spider Man. I very controversial opinions here.
Mm.
Very good, I think. Thor underrated. I think Silver Age Thor gets glossed over a bit much, but
Some good stuff there.
obviously. When you're talking Silver Age, Doom Patrol, and Legion of Superheroes at DC, are, I would say, just about as good as most of what Marvel was doing at the time. Was it Walt Simonson's Thor run?
Yeah.
Tom DeFalco's Thor run? Dan Jurgens' Thor run?
Yes.
Really great.
There's some unique ones.
Um, yeah. So
That's
lots of
cool.
stuff. I've read a few comics.
You've read a few comics. Like, that's as
Yeah.
they say these days, a murderer's row of good comics there.
Yeah. Absolutely. For sure.
So this article is trying to help people. Are you familiar with this concept that people do of the not this that? Do you know what that is?
I think so.
Okay, it's like don't eat this, eat that instead, or
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
watch
Yeah.
this, eat that instead, or watch this instead. Everything's eating. All right, well
Uh,
let's get into this article here. 5 classic comics you can skip and what to read instead.
oh no.
Okay,
Oh God, this is going to be awful.
now you don't think this is going to go well?
Let's find out.
Okay. And there's a little bit here we can acknowledge the impact of comic classics and critique them. But this is, where to start with comics, best comics of all time. And we're going in with many of these classics published in the 80s and maybe the 90s, the distant past. They would tell, they would push boundaries to tell complex, serious adult stories at dawn of those annoying Biff Bam Pow comics just aren't for kids anymore headlines. Okay. But these are groundbreaking comics. Sure, here's an ad. But that was 4 decades ago. The ancient times, the 80s. Shocking deconstructions really are not that good. Many of them are riddled with sexism, racism, homophobia, and other isms. All those isms that are dismissed by comic fans because they're classics. They're often dismissed.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's take a look what we got here. We got some comics. Okay, there's a lot of ads here, but here's some.
So just to be clear too, when things are phrased that way, it always comes off to me like, oh, well, now racism and sexism's over.
Yeah.
And we'll never have to worry about it again. It's weird.
You make a great point, and it is a topic for a full video of itself. On one hand, we're told comic books are a medium where you can convey these really complex social topics, and it's a way to kind of get topics like racism and sexism, homophobia proper due. And get people thinking about it. On the other hand, we need to erase all these old comics that covered that.
Yes.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, our first comic here, our classic, is Watchmen, and this is a classic from Alan Moore, and it's really talking about first off, it kind of the article excuses itself by saying, if you know anything about comics, you know that Alan Moore would be the first to tell you not to read Watchmen himself. I'm not sure that's what he would do.
Oh, okay, but also, I really got to jump in here. What's so funny to me about this premise in general is the same people who have also built up this kind of ideology of, well, we put way too much emphasis on the writer. It's always the writer. What about the rest of the team? There's an artist, there's a colorist, there's a letterer. Like, what are we doing? We always prop up the writer, and then the same people do, well, listen to Alan Moore and fuck Dave Gibbons, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree. I think Dave Gibbons would kind of like you to still read this comic. I think
Dave Gibbons would love it if you read Watch.
Well, what's funny about this? I don't think Alan Moore would have a problem with you reading this book. I think Alan Moore's problem is them continuing to make sequels to this book. Is Alan Moore's problem. But anyway, it's the main argument here is that 37 years removed from both publishing and political context, which first appeared, has been largely bled dry of meaning by the endless imitators who have tried to further deconstruct the superhero and somehow landed on fascism is cool instead. It's a weird choice. And then there's a little bit of shade saying that the idea of using a 9-panel grid in your comic automatically makes it intelligent. Oh, okay. And it concludes with, you can skip Killing Joke too. So you could skip Watchmen. Let's see what the article recommends instead. You ready?
Probably not, but let's go.
Bitch Planet.
Holy shit! They're kidding, right?
No, Bitch Planet is what we want to read instead.
No, but they're... I mean, the idea of that is like, throw that apple away. You don't want an apple. Here's broccoli. And it's like, but we're not even in the same food group. And like, I'm putting quality and all that aside. I was reading Bitch Planet when it was coming out. Sure. I enjoyed it. I've had interactions with Kelly. Kelly Sue. She's always been nice. Valentine Delandro. I've loved Valentine Delandro for a long time. Mm-hmm. He did some issues of was it the X Factor Investigations when Peter David was so I was familiar with him from that. But this is all okay. So
it seems like an odd change, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, this is one of those things that, like, you hear people make these kind of arguments sometimes, and they're insane, and they're completely indefensible because it's just like, like what do you need Starry Night for? My cousin's kid's a great painter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like that's great, and I bet your cousin's kid is a fantastic painter, but your cousin's kid doesn't have a multi-generational impact on the medium.
Yeah. The
Like,
argument here also, because they try to explain themselves a little bit by saying,
sure.
Watchmen was kind of dark and gritty with tired out storylines that people have, recaptured. And here it says,
Yeah.
like Watchmen, it's a dark and cynical take on human nature with scathing political commentary, heavily inspired by pulp and lowbrow media. Unlike Watchmen, its political commentary isn't several decades out of date. And it obviously centers on women instead of treating them like victims and props, while also engaging with the real world systems of oppression that hit BIPOC and LGBTQ plus women especially hard.
If you think Silk Spectre was a powerless victim, you didn't read Watchmen.
Yeah, I agree. I find that odd. On a lot of
but also, I mean, even on top of that, like, I don't. Has this person read Bitch Planet recently? Like, it's a lot of that commentary is already dated. That's kind of the nature of contemporary political commentary. Like, it's a decade old. It's already dated.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, let's see where this goes. Okay, so we got our first one. Our second one, The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller and Klaus Janson. Okay. And we're going to get in the dystopian future. This is like Watchmen. It's been thoroughly absorbed into the comics discourse. It also managed to convince multiple generations of fanboys that Batman could beat Superman in a fight. Seems like an odd statement, given Batman was using kryptonite, and that was kind of the whole point.
And also, he didn't win because Superman was still alive. Like, he didn't actually beat. Like, again, did they read this book?
And worse, it says, and worse, that's even an argument worth having. I mean, to me, I don't know about you, but I long for the days where people were arguing, could Batman beat Superman somehow, instead of some of the arguments we have in comics now.
Well, this kind of goes back to a recent video we did where I was riffing on the idea of, like, everyone's just like, my Thor run is Berserk meets the Bear or something like that. And you're just like, I would love if your Thor run was inspired by previous Thor runs. And it's a very similar kind of thing to that, where it's just like, I would love to go back to those arguments at this point. Like, I get it. There's a point where you're like, why are we having these arguments? But then they're pushed away for so long that it's just like, actually, can we go back to that, please? Because this is terrible what's replaced it. So,
oh, for sure. They also blame this comic for Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, which is apparently really, really bad. I guess, I don't know. It's just a movie, but
it is just a movie.
If you must read a Frank Miller Batman comic, read instead. Look at this little quotation. But you don't have to read that either. I just said, why are we shitting on Frank Miller today? All right, well, let's see what they say instead. What to read instead? I don't know. It's this article is now cropping out, but this is New Gods by Jack Kirby. Okay. So this is I like New Gods by Jack Kirby. I don't quite understand how New Gods by Jack Kirby is a replacement for The Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, no, it's not at all. And they're wildly different lengths. It's just like, don't watch that movie. Here's a 3-season TV show you should watch instead is weird.
I agree. Also, here's something kind of odd. If you must read a Frank Miller Batman comic, read instead, but you don't have to read that either. New Gods by Jack Kirby. I feel like we're missing some things here.
It was. I feel like they were probably saying Year One instead or something like that, because, like,
yeah,
But also, here's what I hate about lists like this and this kind of mindset in general. And this is the irony, because people who put, not just picking on whoever wrote this, I have no idea who this is, because these lists are written by a lot of people, and this is a popular sort of thing to do. This is fake intellectualism arguing against cultural literacy.
I agree. Yeah, no, I
And
agree.
and that's so dangerous. Like, you don't know what you don't know. And it's shocking to me, like, how many people, when they finally start diving into some of the classics, whether they're books, movies, comics, and go, oh my god, I understand where things come from now.
Yeah.
And like, this is anti-intellectualism that's arguing against understanding. That's insane to me.
Well, the next one's going to double down on that a little bit. I'm going to
Great.
refresh this
Great.
here real quick, and we'll come back just in case. Please allow ads on our site. No, thank you. Okay. All right, we got a little preview there. I don't know. It's still being this site's still being a little weird, so we'll get into it.
Yeah.
Okay, The Sandman
Yeah,
is our third book we shouldn't read, and The Sandman. We talk again. I mean, the main purpose of this article is that other people have spun things off, and they've referenced these books. So rather than go to the original that a lot of comics went off from, let's just don't read it at all.
Yeah, that's bad. Like, that's an anti-intellectual take from someone who thinks they're being an intellectual.
That'd be kind of like the masters, the Picasso and painters from the past. You shouldn't look at or pay any attention to. Just look at something more more recent, because a lot of people copied that style.
Yeah, you know what? Alan Moore, like, who is someone propped up in this article, and Kelly Sue, and other writers that reach a certain level of acclaim tend to be able to do, is mention a handful of classics.
Yeah, well, like you did at the start, actually.
Yeah, actually.
And then it does reference here. It's a lot of comics, I guess. I mean, we just recommended the New Gods, multiple volumes by Jack Kirby, but the Sandman are a lot of comics. Okay,
Sure.
and then we get a little recent. This is the recent allegations against Neil Gaiman is starting to get more traction, I noticed. But I do like this last sentence, which puts a pin on the argument. Let's just skip it. Yeah.
Yeah, you know who loves that? Colleen Doran, Jill Thompson, Mark Hempel, Sam Keith, and all the other artists that like worked on it. Like, yeah, no, I'm sure they'd all love if you would just skip it.
Yeah, just skip it. Yeah. Instead, we want Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples.
That's like, again, it's a weird thing where it's just like, you don't want to watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Why don't you watch the Star Wars trilogy? It's like, but they're like, what? They're different things.
I like this argument. Well, it's about love, parenthood, and war, and obviously epic in scope with a diverse cast. Okay, as opposed to The Sandman, which does not have a diverse cast.
No, not at all.
Though currently on hiatus, there have been 68 issues published, almost as many as Sandman's original 75. Okay. I don't know.
That,
what?
Yeah, no, that it doesn't make sense. And again, like look, I love Saga, especially when it came out pre-large hiatus. I was all about it. I got a sketch and a commission from Fiona Staples like very early on, before she really stopped doing commissions. Fantastic. I read her like Archie stuff and stuff like that when it was coming out. I was buying the floppies and the trades for years on that stuff to just support the book, because I love the book so much. If someone ever asked me, should I read Saga or Sandman, I'd be like, why are you asking me that question? That's a stupid question.
Sure. I think Brian K. Vaughan would say that's a stupid question, is the thing.
Yeah. Like, you can read both. Like, if you don't like, and we are also coming at this from a point, just to be clear, because you mentioned this point before, like, Sandman's not even in your like top 3 Vertigo books.
No, oh, no, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
So like,
but
yeah.
it's again, this article's fine. And what's interesting is the what to read instead books aren't bad. And actually,
Mhm.
as we conclude this entire article, none of the what to read instead books are necessarily bad. I
Yeah.
mean, none of them are bad at all. I enjoyed all of them in different ways, but I don't see how they
Yeah.
relate to the classics in any way. But all right, next comic we have here is All Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Quietly.
They're
And
arguing not to read it.
don't read this. Yeah, don't read this one.
That's blowing my mind, I think, more than anything else, because that's not even, that's this century.
Yeah, it's
Like,
2005.
yeah, like that's, yeah, whoa, okay.
It says this article says, unlike most of the comics on this list, All Star Superman isn't an exercise in relentless cynicism. It's actually quite an uplifting story. However, like most Morrison comics, it delights in being self-referential and opaque, and sometimes I just don't have the energy. Okay.
I don't know. I read All Star, like, you know, again, like it's hard to hear this stuff and not feel like an asshole, but I'm sure you probably feel the same way. Like, All Star Superman wasn't that hard to understand.
It goes, it's a love letter to the Silver Age. That means we get a Silver Age Superman. More demigod than man, which isn't my preferred take.
I mean,
Sure.
what's like, but here's the thing, this is where these sort of arguments fall apart, is when you start, you know, poking and prodding, you know, those sort of opinions, it does get to a point where it's like, okay, well, what are your preferred Superman takes? And they will rattle off a handful of graphic novels and not like runs. Like this person's response isn't going to be the Triangle era, you know?
Yeah. So, what do you think? We're going to reveal. What do you think you should read instead? I'll give you a clue. It is a Superman book. What is the substitute for All Star Superman that this writer is going to come up with? And
Is
for
it
what it's worth, I like this book that's recommended. I just once again do not see how it's a replacement for All Star Superman, and nor, even though I like the writer a lot, not in the
sure?
same ballpark.
Is it? Yeah, I don't know. Is it Birthright?
Mm, no, it's Superman smashes the Klan.
What the fuck? That's stupid.
Yeah, Superman smashes.
That's, and again, great, but what?
It's a fun book. I enjoy
Yeah,
Superman
for
smashes the Klan a
sure.
lot, especially
Yeah,
because it leans into the Golden Age,
yeah,
which is not as good as the Silver Age. And this list is about how you don't have to read classics. I'm not sure.
yeah. No, I think Gene Luen Yang's great. I've read a bunch of his stuff. I think, you know, Superman smashes the Klan is like fine, but like it doesn't even come to mind for me to recommend to someone. You know, like it's just
Yeah.
not something that's on the top of my list for that. Um, no, I like what?
It says it's a Superman with a moving story of immigration, anti-bigotry, and belonging. Um, and at some point through this, it starts to feel like that's really the purpose of a lot of the replacement books. But it it's just such a strange article because Grant Morrison does not do a bad job of introducing anti-bigotry and belonging. I think that's a common thread in most of his books as well.
Yeah. I mean, and all of that is in All Star Superman. You can even talk a bit about immigration to a point, because Superman himself is an immigrant, and there's the bit with like the two sort of alien that like alien couple that like they have that sort of thing in like the middle of the book and all of that. So like, yeah, all of those things exist. Maybe they're not as bluntly hitting you over the head as something titled Superman Smashes the Klan.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's in there. There is this thing in literature, again, if you're not anti-intellectual, called subtext.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
The subtext of this video is this is fucking stupid. All right, last one we got here
Great.
is Civil War. Now, Civil War by Mark Miller and Steve McNiven.
Sure.
There's a decent amount of fans that do hate this book because of kind of what it did to the Marvel Universe and kind of the things that followed from it. This one is more of it's a stand-in for three different things: post 9/11 cynicism about heroes, looking at Jew identity crisis. Sure, event comics that force you to buy 20 tie-ins, if only. This book had like 80. Shocking character deaths that will almost immediately be reversed. And then deeply unserious attempts to apply real-world logic to comic universes, as if, sure, Steve Rogers can do whatever anonymous violence he wants because he's so nice and sad, is a reasonable position to take.
Sure. I mean, there are solid arguments against Civil War, none of which are financial. But when I understand that, like, Steve and Tony's personalities and how they would act in situations is pretty alien in this to make the story work, and I get that. There are bits in it that I think some people didn't necessarily understand were played for laughs, like the giant grave for Giant Man there. That bit is incredible. It's hilarious, and it was meant to be hilarious. But like there's dark humor in it that does go over people's heads. But I understand not liking it, but also, what would the replacement be?
Oh, well, let's find out. So this is an event comic in Marvel. And obviously, as you said, it was financially what Marvel needed at the time and arguably cemented the next decade of their sales. And once again, this title I enjoy. I am in the minority of the people who watch this channel for sure who enjoy this book. But I think the first couple of years of this book were really solid. And here it is. It's Miss Marvel.
Sure.
By G. Will Wilson. And now, again, though, as you pointed out, and even the author starts to acknowledge this, okay, yes, this is a completely tonally different from Civil War, but that's why I picked it. As a replacement for Civil War, Miss Marvel.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like, hey, you know what? I can't stress enough, do not watch Gone with the Wind. You know what you should do instead? SpongeBob the movie.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a class. That's a real classic. And look, totally, it's different, but
yeah. The whole thing is weird. They do give us, if you must read an event comic, read JL Ape, where everyone in the Justice League turns into an ape. It's not good or anything, but that's not the point.
I feel like they're just talking about the article at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we get into the bunch. I love comics, love comic history.
No, you don't. You don't love comics history if you're who imagine having the gall to be like, fuck Watchmen, The Dark Knight Returns. I love comics history. Like, no. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You might love comics. I will not tell people they don't love comics, whatever you can love and hate certain things, but don't shit on Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns and then be like, I love comics history. Like, just
no, I'm with you. The odd part about this article is this: the recommendations are mostly just fine on their own. The 5 comics are recommended or solid recommendations, and you can certainly do it. It's as replacements for these other books where it gets super weird to me. And remember,
it even says that on this, like, the anti-recommendations on this list have value. even if just as an historical artifact at this point. But it's like, like, do people understand the totality of existence, the amount of time that life has existed, the billions of years on this planet, or all of the tens of thousands of years that humanity has grown and prospered on this earth, and to be like, if it's more than like 30 years old, fuck it.
Well, then go read New Gods by Jack Kirby.
Yeah, exactly. Read New Gods by Jack Kirby. Don't read. If anyone here read Absolute Batman, I hate to break it to you, references Dark Knight Returns a lot.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
But you wouldn't understand that. It would fly completely over your head if you didn't read it and didn't develop, this, the just the literary knowledge and just the God, it's so, well, like, cultural literacy is important. It is.
It is. You need to read these books. It helps make these references land later when you see them. It tells you how these things are going. The phrase "people stand on the shoulders of giants" is a phrase for a reason. They're great books. I mean, I appreciate the last line. Remember, if you love comics, any comics, you're a comics fan. I mean, good.
Yes, I completely
agree. Be a comic fan. That's cool. But it is a strange list where you're saying, don't read All-Star Superman, read Superman Smashes a Klan, or don't read Watchmen, read Bitch Planet. That's a very strange choice that's being made there.
But these are the kind of people who you have to imagine. They're like, it's so weird. I've seen a bunch of TV and movies where someone says they need a bigger boat, and I just don't get it. It's like there's so many movies where they're joking around about being someone's father. Like, what's that about?
It's when I shout out, I want my $2, and nobody knows what I mean.
Exactly. I'd buy that for $1.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. See what we can do here. Yeah,
absolutely. Because of cultural literacy.
Well, Joe, thank you very much for going through that list for me. And if anyone wants to send a similar painful list for us to go through, Joe is always happy to do it.
Sure.
All right, Joe. well, we'll talk again real soon.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Ooh.